Resuming debate, the honourable member for Sherwood Park, Fort Saskatchewan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak to this critical issue. All of us know in this House that there is an urgent need for action. There are many challenging parts to this issue. There are no easy answers. And I do think it is important that we do not wrap this particular issue up exclusively in just the broader questions of the challenges facing Aboriginal communities. There are many challenges facing First Nations communities, but we also need to have a specific strategy addressing suicide, because suicide is a challenge like no other. Now, we have all been moved by the tragedy in Attawapiskat, and the broader context in terms of suicide within Aboriginal communities is horrifying. Suicide rates in Aboriginal communities have been shockingly and persistently high. Not only are the numbers high, but while the overall Canadian suicide rate has declined, rates have continued to rise in Aboriginal communities. Existing numbers may in fact underreport the levels of suicide in Aboriginal communities, because in many cases suicides may appear as accidental death, and Aboriginal communities have significantly higher rates of accidental death as well as of suicide. Now, I spent some time today reading a report prepared for the Aboriginal Healing Foundation called Suicide Among Aboriginal People in Canada, and I would certainly recommend the reading of this report to all members in this place. There are a few points in particular from this report that I'd like to highlight because I think they may help us chart a way forward. First of all, the report does highlight the significant need for more study, specifically about suicide within Aboriginal communities. There is a need to dig deeper into the specific dynamics, problems, and potential solutions that apply here in Canada. Now, I know my Conservative colleagues recently proposed a study at the Aboriginal Affairs Committee specifically on the staggering rate of suicides among Canada's Indigenous peoples. Our colleagues in other parties disagreed and preferred instead a study focused on general health issues. And not to suggest that that isn't important, but I think we need to recognize suicide as a specific and distinct kind of challenge. Now, it was interesting for me to read in this report that there is significant variation across different Aboriginal communities. And this is important because it gives us an opportunity to study communities where things are working and to try to facilitate connections between communities with significant challenges and communities who may already have some solutions. Let's explore the possibility of facilitating partnerships between communities and also of studying the significant variation between communities. Now, the report highlights how suicide can spread in small communities with close interconnections. The report reads, "In small Aboriginal communities where many people are related and where many people face similar histories of personal and collective adversity, the impact of suicide may be especially widespread and severe." The report tells us later on, quote, "Early intervention with families and communities to support the healthy development of infants and children may reduce the prevalence of personality disorders and other mental health problems which are more difficult to address in adolescents or adults." So we know as well the importance of that early intervention. The report highlights strategies that make a difference: restricting access to the means of suicide, providing education on coping skills, training youth as peer counselors, training those who come in regular contact with youth, mobilizing the creation of community-based suicide prevention programs, and ensuring that mass media portray suicide and other community problems appropriately. Now, through all this, I think we all recognize that there is a role for government, but that government policy isn't the central factor. This report that I referred to highlights that we need to explore and support local solutions to strengthen individuals, to strengthen families, and to strengthen whole communities. And certainly I would again underline the emphasis on the need for further study.